can't get a doctor's appointment. There seems to be a lot less police presence. I just think they're bonkers. Their economic policies are not good. They don't make sense. A lot more crime as a result. Schooling system doesn't really seem to be educating our children. They can't function running the country on the current outgoings unless they borrow money. The medical system in terms of the NHS is crumbling and falling apart. If you're trying to feed 100 people with £100, it's going to be pretty bad quality. The prisons are full up and people are having to leave. There's potholes left, right and centre all over the roads. You can't seemingly get anything done. Everything's broken. You see, the thing is with the economy is you can look at it and from a person on the street, you can think, well, hang on a minute, we're in a position where I'm seeing, I can't get a doctor's appointment. There seems to be a lot less police presence, a lot more crime as a result. Schooling system doesn't really seem to be educating our children. And the medical system in terms of the NHS is crumbling and falling apart. The prisons are full up and people are having to leave. There's potholes left, right and centre all over the roads. You can't seemingly get anything done. Everything's broken and all you hear is doom and gloom. And on top of that, everything's getting more expensive and it's harder to live. So what do you do about it? How do you solve it? And everyone's got their kind of opinion. Okay, and you can break down and speak to economists and all this kind of stuff, how you look at it. But if you actually break the numbers down on a facts figure and you look at where the majority of the actual government spend, the taxpayer spend, that's the government income and what they want to put it out on. What's it spent on? Well, it's mainly spent on welfare, looking after old people, if you want to put it in there. And then the other part of it is paying off basic historic government debt. The problem you've got when you look at the amount of money from those three areas, that's an incredible amount of money that if you took that away, you'd be in a much better position in this country. And the country itself is, for me, not handling things correctly. The governments that we have, Rachel Reeves' policies are more or less the same as what previous governments have done, which we don't want to upset the apple cart. If you upset the apple cart, the markets, the financial markets will take massive hits and all of a sudden we'll be in trouble. Okay, and here's how it roughly works. The government basically have to fund, they talked about basically not wanting to fund day-to-day bills, effectively running the country from borrowing money. But the reality is that they can't function running the country on the current outgoings unless they borrow money. If you want to borrow money, you need to make sure your currency stands up okay. If you want to sort the problems out that exist in this country, you're probably going to upset the financial markets. If you upset the financial markets, borrowing money becomes incredibly expensive and you'll devalue the currency you have in the first place by keep doing so. So guess what governments do? They play it safe, they play it steady, they don't change much stuff. That's why Rachel Reeves doesn't do much stuff. And here's the thing, her policies are not about keeping you, Joe Public, happy. Her policies are around keeping the markets happy, the financial markets. That's the whole job that she's basically got. Keep them happy, make sure everything ticks along, and keep growth above zero. That's it. And how do you do that? You don't upset the financial markets. You keep things steadily going along and you balance things enough so they keep eking along. The problem is they're not going to sort out any of the problems that way. If you want to sort the problems out, you have to address the three big areas. You've got too many old people. The pension system that we had is basically designed, the state pension is designed to give you 20% of your income effectively. 20% of your income, it's designed to sort of tide you along. The idea of working all your life, the original idea of the pension was basically that it would supplement a bit of your income, but the rest of it, you worked all your life, put all your money away into your savings, paid off your house, whatever it was at the time, and basically be in a position where the extra 20% would allow you just to survive a few years in your retirement. Basically, that would be it. It'd be your extra kind of spending money that you need. You're disposable because you're not working. But your responsibility was to effectively save up your money, have all your bills paid, your main ones, and then enjoy once you've lived that part out of it. It was not to supplement you an income to be able to live in an age where everything is ridiculously expensive. Pensions basically aren't really designed for that, and they weren't designed for people to keep living into their 80s and 90s. So you end up with a massive bill that the country's trying to look after its old people, and it's crippling the NHS because it's not designed for it. But at the same time, we're giving out welfare left, right and centre. I mean, this country is a lovely country. They're so nice to people. The problem is you can't, there's only so ways you can split a tenner. if you sit there and you want to go out and you buy a meal and it's between two people, if you've got £100, you can have a reasonable meal for that. But if for that same £100 you're trying to feed 10 people, the meal's probably not going to be the same quality. From the NHS perspective, for me, and the healthcare perspective that we have, the amount of old people we've got, unless you're going to start going around, and I'm not suggesting this, going around culling old people, you're not going to necessarily solve the problem. Old people will have more health problems. People are living longer. It's just the way it is. So you have to look at how you rectify that problem. The NHS, the way I see it going, whether we want to admit it or not, is they will need to start breaking the NHS up. And it will probably start moving into a privatised system. And I imagine within 10 years, you will see a lot of trusts of the NHS or certain wings of the NHS move private. It will just go that way because the system cannot support it. Whether we like it or not, that's just how it's going. For me, though, rather than just try to paper over the cracks, I think it's better probably for a government to admit the truth of the direction it's going in. It might be a political problem, but if you have a plan of it, the key objective for me with the NHS side of it, if you want to bring that down, you need accident and emergency and primary care for people that need help. That needs to be NHS government supplied, free for all. I think that's the wonderful thing. If you're in trouble, you go to the NHS and they'll help you. Okay, that for me would be better. But we're in the position where you start having outpatient surgeries, things like we're going to do plastic surgery for a boob job on the government, or we're going to start spending massive amounts on mental health, but for things like anxiety or ADHD, things that in the nicest way aren't going to stop you being able to live your life. I think you start moving into the realms of it's too much. You have to have a fair balance of that's critical, that's not critical, where someone's going to die over it tomorrow. And those bits are probably going to have to move to some kind of privatised system where you could pay and proportion some of your tax earnings money into a separate system that is just for that. And I feel if you had NI, it would make sense for NI to go into how much you want to contribute to your NI, is what level of service you get. We're already paying NI anyway, and the taxpayer money does not go into anything to do with this kind of stuff. You've got to try and find ways realistically of either bringing the cost down and being honest about it, but also trying to stimulate businesses and opportunities for a free market to get into that. There's ways and means you can make money in this country. And I look at certain ideas that are out there in the political scope that I think people have rubbished because they're from different types of politicians. And there's another idea that I've got. Zach Polanski, for example, he sits there and he says you should legalise all drugs. Now, I'm not a mad fan of Zach Polanski, and I'm not a mad fan of the whole Green Party policies. I just think they're bonkers. Their economic policies are not good. They don't make sense. You can read into them, judge for yourself, but I don't think most of it makes sense. However, I think he's potentially onto something with legalising drugs. Now, I've never taken drugs. I've never even tried smoking. I'm not a particularly big drinker. It's just not my thing. All right? So I see no benefit directly personally from it. However, how much money does the drug market make in the UK that the government don't see any of? Tons. We talk about the amount of barber shops that are doing money laundering. Left, right and centre, right? It's a £1 billion industry, multi-billion pound industry, right? Government's tax direct from it is zero. Now, whereas Thatcher sold all the council houses and made a killing doing, making money and stimulating the economy from all of a sudden a bunch of people that weren't wealthy to be making money, that got her votes. It made a big killing at the time. It's hindered things now because there aren't council houses and property prices are, skyrocketing. But at the time, it made money. Tony Blair, he sat there and he got everyone to do education, go to university. Now you've got 50% of people going to university with 45, 50 grand debt that they're constantly paying back to the government. Nice income stream. Not useful for people because doing sports science degrees for 45 grand, probably not great, really. It's not really helping when you're going to work in Marks and Spencer afterwards. But that's how they made money. If you want to sit there and have an income stream for this generation of government where you get around it, why not be in a position where you legalise drugs? But here, crucially, here's how you do it. You don't just legalise drugs anywhere, you create drug zones. So basically you have an area partitioned off, maybe of a town, maybe it's a square mile or something like that, in a town where you have a bunch of businesses and everything's set up in that zone where you can have it for different types of businesses. There'll be a medical centre there that those businesses will have to pay for. Anything happens in there that's going to be drug related, you deal with it, not the NHS, you deal with it in there. If there's an overdose, anything like that. And different businesses will specialise in different types of drugs, okay? They'll have its own security force there and everything. But if you want to go and consume drugs, perfectly legal to consume drugs in that zone. That zone itself is not residential areas, it's all commercial. It's all commercial, that's what it does, okay? And it's self-governed within that zone. From that, all those businesses have got to pay a premium on drugs that ends up getting paid in tax to the government. You want to talk about the amount of money that system would have, unbelievable. Because not only are the general public who do want to take drugs going to go there because they're clean, safe, moderated, secure, you're not having to deal with some bloke on a back street. The general public, therefore, you will notice a lot of the crimes and everything that you have and a lot of the associated antisocial problems, they're not going to be on your street because everybody's going to those zones. That's it. It's not an individual building, it's a set zone, maybe 30, 40 different locations. Think of it like, some kind of pub culture area, but you've literally got drug culture area, all those businesses are there. You've also got a bunch of businesses that can make a killing, where people can sit there and start businesses that they can make a lot of money legitimately into the system, okay? That will make billions for the UK tax system. And also you would bring down a lot of the costs associated with drug use from the NHS within those zones, because those businesses, those businesses have got to contribute to their own medical centre there to deal with that stuff, okay? And you can charge it back to people who want to go and take drugs. Brilliant. I would look at that as being a good income stream. So there's some of my economic ideas to sort out the UK economy. Be interested to see what your thoughts are, whether you've got any ideas yourself, and whether you've got anything that you think would be useful for the way to sort the UK economy out that people perhaps haven't discussed or explored or thought about. These are ideas at this point. I've looked into them enough, but I want to see people's thoughts. So if you like it, brilliant. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel. Click the bell icon so you won't miss any videos, and give us a like if you like the video. Hope to see you soon.